Could you talk about the Mystic's Toolkit, Sacred Secrets of Mystical Healing?
Oh, sure, sure. So the Mystics Toolkit is really, if you boiled it down, there's a therapeutic approach that's all wound up in that, but it's utilizing the component or the aspect of astral projection. We all have that potential, and a lot of times we do it a little bit in the dream time, but we think about the emotions that we generate, the lower emotions, and then we think of like higher emotions, and then the idea that we're impacted by other people's emotions or their thoughts and their projections. So this is a foundation sometimes for protective practices, is to diminish the effects of negativity coming from other people, or a radiatory effect of being in environments that maybe are very stressful or very low vibration, or where people are very aggressive in general, right? Not specific to you, but you still experience these, right? And so these are all uh, important components to go through and treat, but it's not the end. Like, treating all of these things and working on all these things are not mm, the end of the game, you could say. Just like when we play with intellect and intuition are two pieces of how our brain works, but if we fully embrace being intuitive, we're not walking away from being intellectual, or using the intellect. It's just we're adding another component. Well, intuition isn't also the end goal. The thing that you're shooting for is still beyond intuition. And you could say there's phases or aspects that you go through an experience, but experiencing higher states or heaven on earth um, is a byproduct of development of the intuitive faculties, right? So when we look at the same idea, where there's progression in the things that we do, the reason to practice um, protective practices is, it's not just that we're protecting from environments or other people, or you know uh, part of the thing that we eventually do protection for is things that are in the astral world. And there's things that float around that are very positive, and things that float around that are not, very negative. And our thoughts don't generate them, our emotions don't generate them, you know, our karma, whatever. But the state that we're in, and the way that we think and the way that we feel, we don't generate them, but we can attract things in the astral world. And these things mm, have been around for a while. And if you ever wanted to know, like, what does that feel like when you're attracting something negative, I think we've all had the experience of having a really bad dream or a nightmare. Some of that is tied to this component. And when left unchecked, some of us just don't go there, but you'll still have to address it when you pass and leave the body, or when you leave the body in meditation or prayer, or even when you're having deep experiences of being connected to somebody at some point, and those astral energies impact you. And um, sometimes it might just cause anxiety, sometimes it causes fear, it causes different psychological responses. But that's when it's left unchecked and not prepped for. Like, if you prep for it, you you actually utilize those same things for healing. It's kind of what you do in meditation. You expand out of the body, you tap into something, and then you bring it back in, right? So we want to bring in the good, and we want to chase away the bad, so to speak. And in doing so, you're doing a play between intellect and intuition. You're not just focusing on intuition, you're doing a back and forth. And within that, you could say each energy center, right? Each chakra has a intellectual component and an intuitive component. And when these two things are harnessed, it not only improves mm, the quality of the chakra, you're starting to cultivate the spiritual potential that is held within the chakra, right? And we've prepped for this, and we've been going down this road in some of the chakra classes and some of the other kinds of classes, but this is definitely a new process and stepping up the game of what we've been prepping for with the body wisdom and the three brains and the vagus nerve and the medulla. All of this is going to these deeper places where we start to tap into something that's much greater than what the normal everyday person experiences, and goes beyond what can just be generated by following some technique. You're having to develop something internally, and as you develop it, your ability to step outside of yourself, step into other higher higher realms, higher states of being, then you bring that down into your everyday life. A lot of the things that we want, where we don't, we want to get away from conflict, or we want to get away from, consequences, or, whatever it might be. Part of what we yearn for in the normal everyday world is something that we can access, but not through just intellect and not through the way we live our everyday lives. It is stepping out and then stepping back in again. And part of what you do in meditation is that. Part of what you do in ceremony is that. Part of what you do in prayer is that. Even when you love somebody intensely, part of what you're doing is that. When you love your children or you love your parents, deeply, like, part of what you're doing is that. When you're committed to a teacher, you're at first just like, this is amazing, but at some point there starts to be experiences that can't be explained. And part of the magic, right, is tied to this component of cultivating these aspects within the chakra and astral projection. And so it is going to be woven into some of the other things that we do. It's a natural progression of the three brains and the work with the vagus nerve and the medulla. It's a natural progression for what we've done with the body's wisdom. Part of what we're unwinding in the body's wisdom is the anchors that don't allow us to expand, and the anchors that make us attract the negativity that we keep trying to get away from, but we don't seem to be able to break away from. So this is pulling a lot of things that we've been doing together, but taking it to another level. Not just like, oh, let's organize these things in a particular way, but it's another process. And so if this is the first time that you're doing it, you can still just jump right in. But the things that we've been building up with over the last six months, actually the last few years, but especially the last 6 months, has been going this direction. And so there's, between this and generational healing and some of the other things that are coming down, how do you say it? The coming down the pike, or whatever it is, coming down the road, coming down the tube, whatever that is that people say. um, you, you know, uh, we've been moving towards this for a while, and there's still some interesting new things coming, and it will help one to feel better about oneself, have more peace and acceptance, and have experiences. Like I just come back to like living a cage-free, free-range life, like not being stuck in just our normal everyday life or the parameters of how life is kind of clamped down on you. It's being able to step out of that and substantially step out of it. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'm doing it justice, but it's it's pretty nice, it's pretty blissful, and I would say the mind and the emotions change substantially, um, in a way where things from the environment and things just don't wear on you like they usually do. Like it takes the edge off in ways that we can't do ourselves and our normal everyday ways of doing things. So yeah, I think you'll like it. It's very interesting. It's harder to teach because it's not so much technique oriented, um, where people can just jump in and go, well, what's this do? Like, you're going through and you're having these experiences, you're having these processes, and those experience and processes shift you, they change you. Yeah. Um, you know, we'll be doing a bunch of that. So